Welcome to the Pirate Investor. In this video, we will travel back in time and see how three intrepid investors invest during the 2020 COVID crisis. We will observe what they do and their results, which can serve us as an example to invest in the next crisis. Ready to embark? Weigh anchor. I present to you the three investors. They are the emotional investor, the constant investor, and the pirate investor. The emotional investor follows the hype, and his emotions control his investing decisions. If stocks are growing and everyone buys, he buys. If stocks are down and everyone sells in panic, he sells. The constant investor is very disciplined, and every month, he invests the same amount, no matter what others do. He does not let any feeling, news, or data influence his strategy, which is, by the way, the one most books recommend. Finally, the pirate investor also invests the same amount every month. But in crises, when the price is down, and the interest rate is down too, he invests more. Because he thinks that is a good moment to invest, a treasure. They all have the same money available to invest monthly, and the same amount of savings. And they all invest in the same product, an index fund, that includes hundreds of the largest companies in the world. Are you ready to see them in action in the 2020 COVID crisis, and see how each one ends up? Come with us. Let's travel back in time to January 1st, 2020, just before it all started. The year 2020 started positively. The price of the biggest companies was higher than ever, and rising. The interest rate was at 1.7%. Not bad. At this point, the emotional investor was very excited, and used his savings to buy even more. The constant investor, as always, invested the same monthly amount, and so did the pirate investor, because we were not in a crisis. 1 month later, things changed. The graph we partially uncovered shows the price in black, the interest in blue, and the crises in gray. In February a crisis started. This had nothing to do with COVID. Few people knew about it, and only some in Wuhan were worried. The price did not change much, and the interest remained flat. The emotional investor kept investing, thinking this will be a minor recession. The constant investor invested the same monthly amount. And so did the pirate, because, although a crisis started, price and interest did not go down. On March 4th, things changed, but not much. The crisis continues. But COVID was still a minor thing. Some countries were starting to detect their first cases. Price was down only 7.5%. And interest dropped a bit to 1.2%. The emotional investor kept investing. This still seemed a minor recession. The constant investor invested the same monthly amount. And for the pirate investor, a 7.5% drop in the price, and a small drop in interest, are not enough to act. So he also invested the same monthly amount. But things were about to get interesting and dark. It all came so fast. In March 16th, COVID was in the news around the world. Thousands of deaths. There were already lockdowns in many countries, including France, Germany, most of Europe, Saudi Arabia, and each day, new lockdowns were announced. Travel bans everywhere. Massive job losses. What started as a mild recession became a full-blown economic crisis in a matter of days due to the COVID pandemic. The price was now down 30%. Yes, 30%. And the interest rate was lowered to almost zero. The emotional investor was shocked. His invested savings were shrinking fast. He, and many people, sold in panic to have some cash fearing the economy could collapse. The constant investor, with his cold mind, invested the same monthly amount. And the pirate investor was at his moment. A crisis. The price down 30%. Interest down to zero. Being in a crisis, and being both the price and the interest low, that was a treasure. With courage, he invested his savings, and also the monthly amount. Because he believes, the economy, and also, most of the world's largest companies, will recover from this crisis, as they recovered from every crisis, in the past 70 years. More days went by. Despite the low price, things got worse. Lockdowns were announced in Canada, US, and UK. Deaths increased to almost 100,000, so did job losses, uncertainty, and fear. Price was down 34%. The emotional investor had nothing left to sell, and no intention to buy. The constant investor bought the same monthly amount. And the pirate had already invested his savings on March 16. So he invested the same monthly amount. He was losing 4% in his March 16 investment, but he managed to stay confident that the economy would recover. In April, the crisis ended. Although COVID was worse, and deaths reached 1 million, the economy started to recover. By April 14, the price went up. It was down only 16%. The emotional investor was still scared, thinking price would go down again, and did not buy. The constant investor bought the same monthly amount, and the pirate investor also bought the same monthly amount, because we were not in a crisis anymore. From there, things only got better. By August 21, the price had already recovered. The 2020 COVID crisis lasted for half a year, from the day the price began to fall, until it recovered the pre-crisis levels. At the lowest point, the price was down 34%. Compared to other crises, this was a very short, and relatively deep crisis. But, back to the interesting stuff. Do you want to know the results of our 3 investors? Here they are. The following results focus on the period within the black box. The emotional investor invested his monthly amount in savings, mostly before the crisis. And what is worse, he sold, when things were bad, materializing his losses, of around 34%. The constant investor invested the same amount every month, so he ended up making a decent 13%, in this complicated period. The pirate investor, in addition to his monthly amount, invested his savings on March 16. It was not the lowest point of the crisis, but still, from that investment, he made 42%, and also the 13% from his fixed monthly investment, like the constant investor. This is not financial advice. These are results we can debate. Leave comments with your thoughts or questions. Take these results with flexibility. The big picture is more important than the exact numbers. Here are 2 important assumptions to reflect on. The first assumption, that the constant and the pirate investor make, is the world's largest companies, on average, always recover from a crisis. One company can fail. But indexes like MSCI World and SP500 include hundreds of the biggest companies. They always recovered from crises, since their creation. The emotional investor fails to make this assumption, and that makes him freak out, and sell in a bad moment. The second assumption, that only the pirate investor makes, is when the price and interest are low, is a good moment to invest more. The pirate investor risks his savings for that, thinking that in a crisis, when the price and interest are low, the recovery is not far. Each crisis is different. We don't know the future. Just that for the last 10 crises, along the last 70 years, when the price was low, and the interest got lowered to help everyone pay their debts, the recovery was not far, as we will show in other videos. Will these assumptions hold in the next crisis? To discover it, each month, We will check if we entered a crisis, the price, and the interest. Want to join the crew? See you in the next episode.